Mrs. Gilliam, how did it happen that you failed to file your preliminary expense report before the election?
Well, it was just an honest mistake. We were informed at the time that we picked up the materials, that when we filed our candidacy, that we did have to make an accounting of the expenses 10 days after the election. I realized that we had to make the preliminary report when a reporter called me yesterday and asked me if I had not filed. And I said no, because we have 10 days to file after the election is over. And then that's when I found out that we had to file a preliminary report.
Then you thought the only report you had to file was the final statement after the election. You weren't aware of the one before the election?
No.
The election board didn't make this clear to you or didn't point it out to you?
Well, they didn't at the time that I picked up the materials, but I couldn't say they did not because it's printed in the materials that I received.
We've just had one of the most informative exercises that we've ever had in this office. We had two groups of people working together, the Civil Air Patrol and our REACT tornado spotters working as communications people. And it worked out beautifully. The grade result that we came up with for the overall mission was 85.5%, which I think is tremendous in view of the fact that these two groups had never worked together with the Office of Civil Defense.
Well, first of all, you have to ask them if they really know what the space program can do, say, to help solve world hunger or pollution or some of the other problems that we're facing now. I don't really think that they know.
You know, the critics did not pay a whole lot of attention to the economics on the SST cancellation. What's your impression there?
Well, I think that the real significance of the SST is that the fact that this country is not able or unwilling to commit to long-range plans. And if you really look at it, the standard of living that we enjoy today is wholly based on preceding generation that has had some foresight and commitment to carry out long-range plans. And that if we don't make some long-range plans now for the problems of the future, we may arrive at those days, and the kids today who are worried about pollution, who are worried about world hunger, will find themselves with no tools to solve these problems.
These scouts around us, for instance?
Yes, these scouts around us.
There's a boy in Fort Worth, Texas, who wants to whip a man. There's only one thing wrong with this. I just don't think he can. You see, I'm the man he wants to whip. He can't do it, I'm sure. I'm going to knock Brentus out just about round 4.
All of you and all of us, it will be strictly non-political.
Well, they're fitting in more and in better ways today than they did, say, 5 years ago, but it's taken a massive awareness and group movement to achieve this. Right now, however, we're deeply concerned about the increasing numbers of persons in the retired age group, the earlier retirement, and the technological advances which are saying, we don't need you as a producer, we want you as a consumer.
Mr. Nash, what can be done to alleviate the problems of the older people in this country?
Well, several things. One is, of course, change the image of aging. The stereotype of the nice little old lady in the rocking chair has got to go. Our people are very active and they want to make contributions. So getting communities and organizations to be aware of this is number one. Number two, of course, is legislation where you can't do it by education. And number three, I think, is self-help. Organizations such as the American Association of Retired Persons, the National Retired Teachers Association, and others, providing the opportunities and creating the programs that utilize the skills of the older person. We're alarmed. I think that statistically, anyone stops and thinks for a moment, 2.5 times the medical services are required when you're older than when you're younger. Right now, even under the Medicare program, the older person is paying about $3 out of every $5 spent for medical services. On a fixed income, that becomes a threat to one's ability to continue to live with dignity and independence into later life. So we're very alarmed, and we're active in working with Congress, committees, state legislatures, and so forth, with private insurance industries. We ourselves have our own contracts with insurance firms to get special programs written at the best prices we can get. We have a drug service, a nonprofit drug service, for example, to assist our people who have to spend a lot of their fixed income on the medications and the medical supplies so that they can get it at a better price through our cooperative service.
It wasn't supposed to be a very interesting school board race, what with 4 incumbents up for election and campaign funds being low in both parties. But then the issues of the use of tax money and discipline in the classroom came up. Now CGS has a chance to take the majority membership away from the League for Educational Advancement in Dallas. I talked with CGS campaign chairman Vernon T. Randall about the runoff election April 24th between Joe Kervin and James Jennings.
Even without the majority, the people will see some changes. However, a great deal of what we wish to accomplish will not be accomplished if we cannot get James Jennings elected. The majority vote on the board, I think, will become very, very important. And without him, our programs, our desires for the people of Dallas, what we think the children need in the terms of leadership from the school board, simply will be much more difficult to accomplish.
Dr. Norman Kaplan, campaign chairman for LEAD, credited CGS's win to false issues and a small voter turnout. He had this to say about Kervin's chances for winning the runoff.
Well, I should hope so. I hope that the voters of Dallas will sort of downplay LEAD versus CGS and look at the qualifications of the two candidates. I think that Mr. Kervin is a outstanding man who's had a number of business accomplishments, who is accepted as a leader in his community, not just in the black community, but in the entire city of Dallas, who has served effectively for the last 6 months on the school board, and I think would continue the kind of reasonable progress that the board has made in the last 3 years.
The makeup of the members of this boardroom will be determined in 3 weeks with a runoff election between incumbent Joe Kervin and James Jennings. With the majority balance in question, the voters can be sure that neither party will let us forget it. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna.
All 3 places on the Fort Worth School Board up for election yesterday remain undecided today. All 3 places will need a runoff election April 17th to decide the winners. Place 5 runoff will pit Jack Turner against Mrs. Jack Shannon Jr. In place 6 it will be Stan Harrell versus Curtis Kirkpatrick, and in place 7 School Board Vice President Bill Elliott will face Mrs. Wilba Alleman. Only 14,600 voters went to the polls yesterday for the school board election. That's 4,000 below the predicted turnout. Elsewhere in Tarrant County, incumbents and unopposed candidates had an easy time of it in city elections and other school board contests. However, there was a turnabout in the cities of Bedford and Haltom City, which saw incumbents bite the dust or either will face runoffs later this month. We do urge you to vote in the other municipal elections. They'll be coming up next Tuesday. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
As you know, the fees right now start at $5,000 for the permit. However, it's divided into two installments of 2 years of $2,500 each. I tend to believe that they may be reasonable, but my subcommittee is going to study that a little closer. It may be high, depending on the overall tax aspect of it that has not been brought to face yet.
It's been indicated that there is somewhat of a rush to get this legislation through the House so that votes can be had in local counties. Why?
Well, of course, being from El Paso County, we've always been rather wet, to say the least. And we do have a great many private clubs in our area. And as you know, we're in competition, I say it that way, for tourists, in that we border New Mexico, who has liquor by the drink, and Mexico, who, well, there's no need to talk. They do have liquor by the drink also.
Anything to criticize the caliber of work and relationship I have with my board committee. I'm sure that none of the board members have anything specifically that they'd like to say about me and my character that they would say and give their name to. So I certainly say to you, I'd like to know what the real reason is, and I think that you have a right to hear. And I think if you'll be orderly, that this board will respect you as the people and your wishes. This is what you came here for. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, these are the...
If welfare payments in Texas were raised to extremely high levels, I think this would be bad. If, on the other hand, levels in Texas were raised to raise Texas to about the ranking among the 50 states, a ranking corresponding to its ranking in the Consumer Price Index, about 24th or 25th on the list. I think that would be an appropriate and just policy.
How much money would this take?
Oh, this would take roughly a 40% increase.
And where would the money come from?
The money would come from tax funds.
Have you prepared yourself pretty well, so you think, for the death penalty itself?
Well, in ways I have. I've read the Bible and things like that, and just asked God, told him if I'm guilty of the crime, to let him punish me. If I'm not, don't let him punish me.
What's the feeling here in the county jail on death row about going down and sitting in that chair?
Well, some of the men are scared after death, in my opinion. Some of them are not. Because, well, in other words, they know that they did their crime, but person, all they have to stop and think, did the man really do a crime, or are they just putting the man away for just people hearsays, things like that? Me, with myself, I'm just, it's like when I went to trial, I wasn't guilty when I went down there, and I'm still not guilty. And I want the people, to stop and think for a moment, whether I am guilty or I am not guilty.
No, actually, I don't. I think the number one priority now is what I read coming down in the paper is getting the South Vietnamese people ready so they can defend themselves. You know, if we don't take care of this situation in the right way, we maybe have to do something about it later, and that's what we're trying to forestall. And I think by common sense and going along and letting the guys that really know about it work it out, I think we can get our troops out of there on schedule and still have the South Vietnamese strong enough to protect themselves from the enemy. And, you know, you hear a lot of this hysterical screaming from people who don't really know what they're talking about. And so you have to go along with people that know and people that can guarantee you the sanity of our country that we live in.
Are certainly the
rule that the death penalty was cruel and unusual punishment. What would you suggest the alternative would be?
Give the man life in penitentiary. That's the only alternative you can do.
Do you think this would actually put more fear into a man's life, into his soul, than thinking of going to the chair?
No, sir, I don't.
Do you think it would be more of a deterrent to crime?
Yes, sir. Because right now, like, men are getting the death penalty, but they're still killing and robbing and all that going on the streets. It ain't going to stop. It's going to continue. As long as people's on this earth, it's going to continue. There's no way of stopping it.
I'm talking about Billy Graham. They tell me that it's going to rain tomorrow, and I had one gag that I was going to use in my stuff where I said I played with Billy Graham before, and it rained, but just on me. And now they tell me they're going to appeal to his magic to stop the rain for the tournament tomorrow.
You know, Charlie, I was watching the Masters final round on television, and boy, the wind is strong.
It is. Come on over, Bert.
And I know that you have been asked this a million times, but I'm going to ask it one more time. I watched you on 16, and I thought back 2 years ago, and just what exactly were your thoughts at that time on 16th tee this time around?
Well, actually, they were a little different this time, Vern. At that time, I thought I was still behind. I didn't know that John Miller had bogeyed 16, and I was 8 under, and I figured I was still one shot behind. So I was trying to catch somebody instead of trying to keep somebody from catching me. And whenever you're trying to catch somebody, well, you figure you've got the birdie. You don't figure the other guy's going to bogey. But I took a 6-iron, which in a way it's ironic. It's the club I wanted to hit 2 years ago and didn't. I hit a 5-iron and wound up bogeying the hole. This time I hit a 6-iron. I hit it very solid and knocked it about, I guess 15 feet behind the hole and made the putt. And I walked up on the green. Well, this was before I putted, but I walked up on the green and I saw where John Miller had bogeyed the hole. Then, at that time I knew I was tied, so when I knocked the putt in, it was a very good feeling.
The doors are still open at the Fairchild House on 8th Avenue in Fort Worth, but that's about all. The Fairchild House is sort of a resident halfway house or treatment facility run by the Mental Health and Mental Retardation Center of Tarrant County. The reason that there's very little activity here is that nobody's in charge. The house here has been without a leader since its director, Mrs. Dorothy Blessing, was fired in March. But that's not even the big problem. The Mental Health and Mental Retardation Center, or MHMR Center, has been lacking a business administrator since Doyle Lamb walked out these doors also in March. The Mental Health Mental Retardation Board has almost forgotten what an executive director looks like. There hasn't even been one since February of last year when Dr. Henry Burks quit. Now the center's program director, G. Clark Anderson, has abandoned ship. That leaves the center without any executive leadership. But things may be looking up. MHMR Board Chairman Jim Stiff commented on the future of the program.
Jay, the Tarrant County Mental Health Center is in a state of limbo at the moment because of lack of our top staff. The board is cognizant of this fact. The board also has anticipated the resignations that we've received over the past few months. The board has discussed the problems that we have. We are now actively recruiting an executive director for the Tarrant County Mental Health Center. We think that we will have this position filled within 30 days. If this is the case, then I think that the citizens of Tarrant County can look to a very active and viable mental health program in the county that can be built upon the foundation that we've had with Mr. Anderson's help, the other employees who have now sought employment elsewhere.
The idea is that when the new staff is hired, and when the center's new budget's approved in September, and when all this causes an increase in patient referrals to the Fairchild House here, then the mental health and mental retardation future will look brighter. Well, it's almost got to. When you're at the bottom, there's no way but up. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
Bruce, I think it's obvious to anybody who's watching it, the wind is blowing a little bit strongly today. You just finished, well, on my hair, not on yours, Bruce.
Well, I want to know what Dale Milford's going to say about that tonight, Bud. He's sure to have some comment. Of course, we can blame him. He's in charge of the weather this week.
Well, we better put in an early word to get this thing straightened out, because this is going to play havoc with your game, I would guess.
Yes, it is. It's going to make the golf course play the way it was designed. I think the whole golf course has been designed around the prevailing wind, which is from the southwest. Of course, the big trouble now is that with this stronger wind blowing now, I'm afraid we're going to get a cold front come through, and it may switch to the north. And this will make it cold and dry and this will really send the scores high because it's hard to play in that cold, dry atmosphere. We prefer moist, humid weather, particularly at this time of the year. Now we've had all that cold stuff we need, and now that we're in Texas, we're looking for some decent weather. Of course, we wish we could have played the last 4 days. It's just been beautiful.
I know, Bruce, that you played a practice round today. I understand you also had one Sunday with a few Cowboys.
Well, that's right. The Cowboys, 5 groups of them, as a matter of fact, came out here to stake the golf course. They do it each year, and then they allow them to play the golf course. And I played with Dan Reeves and Ron Whidbey and Mike Ditka and John Nyland. And of course, there's some funny incidents happen. They hammer these pipes into the ground with big steel metal deals. They put them down on top, and they're so strong they went through 5 or 6 of them. They tell me just busted the top right out of them. And John Nyland hit 2 drives off this first tee starting out here. The club looked like a toothpick in his hands, and he hit 2 shots off there that looked like missiles.
Well, to a certain extent, Vern. I'm not going to tell you that the dollars are just rolling in. I wish they were, but I really don't know. I have a fellow that's handling this for me and everything, and what all he's got lined up, I don't really know yet. I told him that the main thing I wanted to do here the next 5 or 6 weeks after the Masters was play in tournaments, and try to do some good in those, so that well, while I'm playing good, maybe I can win another one, and people will, not that they aren't, but would be more ready to accept the fact that I did win the Masters.
I would suppose that there might be the temptation to do just the opposite, to take advantage of it while you could.
Well, that's true, and you can pick up a lot of quick dollars and everything like that, but I don't know. I have always liked to play in golf tournaments, and if I can play in tournaments that I like where I feel like I can do well, I generally would rather play in them than I had to go someplace and play an exhibition for a few guaranteed dollars.
There are more poor people in cities. It's the problems of urban.
However else you want to describe it, it's not going to be just another routine meeting of the Tarrant County Community Action Agency Board of Directors tonight. At a closed meeting, April 27th, the board voted to dismiss the executive director of the CAA staff, Clem Constantine. Also being asked to leave are David Payton, Director of Operations, and Paul Sims, Director of Planning for the group. The whole CAA right now is a morass of political intrigue. There's a memorandum out from Ollie Reed, chairman of the board, to all members of CAA staff. It orders them not to be derelict in their duties and to respect their supervisors and their jobs, despite the fact that many of them are upset over the firings and forced resignations of the top 3 men. We'll have a report on that meeting at 10 o'clock tonight. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
the grand opening of the Government Printing Office bookstore here in Dallas. A bookstore filled with information. Most of it comes from the government agencies that are involved in public information in Washington. All of it comes from the U.S. Government Print Office. In case you're curious as to what kinds of things you'll find here, there's a myriad of items such as pamphlets and books on drug abuse, on marijuana. Here's one on trout farming and how you can turn that into a profit. There are some things, too, that you will find interesting no matter what your career or what your interests are. For instance, this handbook on the mission of Apollo 14 and the other space missions of this country. There are books concerning voting and all of the new voting information facts since 1970 and this year. A book on selling to the military. If you're a vendor who wants to sell your product to the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, or some defense agency. Books on the Arctic and Antarctic. A complete digest of international law. Those are the kinds of things you can find when you visit the Government Printing Office Dallas bookstore, located in the new federal building at 1100 Commerce.
Mayor Tommy Vandergriff, now in his 20th year as mayor of Arlington, is the center of all the attention. Yesterday, Vandergriff Appreciation Week activities got underway with a parade through the downtown area of the city. That parade was climaxed when Vandergriff was presented a chauffeured car for his use this week, even to his Chevrolet dealership. The automobile is a Ford. This afternoon, the mayor was the guest of the women's division of the Chamber of Commerce. At a reception, they presented him with a ventriloquist dummy bearing a strange resemblance to the mayor himself. Attached was a long list of things the dummy could say. The ladies told the mayor to leave it at home while he was out on city business so his family would remember him. Other serious and humorous activities are planned throughout the rest of Vandergriff Appreciation Week in Arlington. And everywhere you go, people are wearing one of these pins. In large letters, it says, Vandergriff Forever. And in smaller type, it looks like. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move in Arlington, Texas.